Hey going guys, welcome to another episode of What Do You Do for a Crust? With us today we have our Customer Relations Coordinator returning for another episode. Thank you very much.
No, thanks for having me again.
Really appreciate it for your time. We had some wonderful feedback just in regards to the convos that you and I were having. And
Beautiful.
I think I'm really keen for this episode. We're just going to sort of shoot the shit, shoot the breeze, and just chat about,
Just general
things
general issues in the place.
Yeah,
Yep.
We'll see how we go.
Sweet.
But thank you very much. You've given up your Sunday.
No, that's all right.
I really
My pleasure.
appreciate it. I know there's a couple of things that I wanted to chat and get your opinions on certain things.
Sure.
But given that a lot of your experience and background is in regards to like sales and working in a team, I think a lot of people don't trust salespeople. I've said on this pod a couple of times, I don't trust like car salesmen, and I'd love to get a car salesman on here because they have a bad stigma or stereotype of
Absolutely. Yeah.
Having said that, having known you and getting to know you across these episodes, I know that you're extremely respectful and extremely much is terrible grammar, but extremely advocating for the client, the customer, whoever it may be.
Yep.
It seems like a bit of a bad stereotype.
It is, and there's probably two ways I can look at this. One, I completely understand where people are coming from in regards to talking about sales and how they have a bad rep because... you sort of, every time you go to and speak to a salesperson, they can always think, okay, well, they're just going to try and sell me the most expensive product.
Yeah.
I get that. The other side of the fence, what I think a lot of people fail to realize is that salespeople are people too, and they have a back pocket to fill.
Yeah.
So I worked in sales myself for probably 10 to 12 years myself.
So we're talking to a good person here for experience-wise.
No, thank you. And in regards to, from how I was as a salesperson personally, and there's the way I look at it as how I was a salesperson, not, being modest at all, but from a company's point of view, in terms of, numbers on a piece of paper, I was probably not a good salesperson because I wasn't the sort of person that would tick all the boxes. But I kind of feel that from a customer's point of view, they liked me because it's probably too trustworthy in a sense. Customers, I would genuinely listen to what customers wanted, and if they so I worked in an electrical retail store, which we sold things like, TVs, white goods, kitchens, computers, that sort of thing.
Which are definitely important things.
Absolutely. And look, don't get me wrong, it was in our best interest to sell the most important, expensive products, because that made us more money. Yeah. But at the same time, if a customer came to me and said, look, I've got a budget of $1,000, I'm not going to go show them a $2,000 product.
Yeah, very fair.
It made no sense.
I'm guessing as well, South Australia, we're based in South Australia at this stage, even though we've had some guests from out of state, but South Australia is a small state. Everyone seems to know everyone or, has that third line of contact.
Definitely.
Reputations and that kind of thing gets known pretty quick.
Sure.
If you're more working for the customer and less ticking those boxes, I guess, that gets found out. People know, okay, yeah, this is a good salesperson or this person is really nice. I'm going to recommend them to my family and friends. Yeah,
and especially when, you're exactly right. I've been, born and bred in South Australia. I've lived here my whole life. I can't literally go anywhere without running into someone I know. So word spreads pretty quickly.
Yeah,
look, at the end of the day, you want repeat customers. When you get a customer come in and they sort of, sometimes you'll get that customer and says, look, I bought that today, but would I ever go speak to that person again? No, I wouldn't. I kind of feel like from my point of view that I was the kind of salesperson that people would come back to because, I'd listen to what they wanted. And if they said, look, I want a product that does this, 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 and this, well, then I'd show them what they wanted. I wouldn't, sometimes, I might go down that line and just say, look, just so you know, that little bit extra gets you this. But then if they kind of go, yep, no worries, look, not really interested, then I just go, okay, no worries, just won't even worry about it because at the end of the day, like, they're the customer, customer is always right, so to speak, but at the same time...
What they want and actually need is,
And you just don't want to waste time. You just sort of think, just show them what they want and move on from there, yeah.
Okay. So if I'm an individual and I've walked into JB Hi-Fi, Harvey Norman, Good Guys, whatever it is... How do you approach me? Because if I'm being really honest, normally I walk in and someone goes, hey, do you need a hand with anything? And I normally go, nope, I don't need a hand.
Yep.
Because I don't like feeling pressured.
Sure.
And I do that when I'm buying anything, when I'm buying a T-shirt or whatnot, because half the time I don't know what I want and I don't want anyone to influence me, which is probably, I'm a terrible shopper, so I'm the worst person to have to approach. But how do you gauge when to press, when to approach? If I'm new to the industry, how do I know
Yeah, sure. Look, there's a way the company wanted us to approach people, and that approach was, "What brings you into the store today?" You know, that was a stereotypical that way. But look, I'm a human being.
Yeah.
I'd literally, that's how I'd approach you. I'd just say, "Hey, how you going today? You know, good. How are you? Yep, no worries. Did you need a hand with anything? No worries. I'm just having a look. No problem. If you have any questions, just sing out." Okay. If you're still, you know, and just say if you're still in the department, maybe say 5 or 10 minutes later, I'd maybe approach you again, just sort of say, "Hey, just want to check with you. You're still all good here." Then the questions from customers would generally arise. You know, yes, I'm looking at this product, and then you move on from there. But you know, I remember there was one occasion actually back in the day when I was working in this sales, and this is just, you know, just customers just in general, but there was actually someone who actually complained that too many salespeople approached him. And look, we weren't being, you know, it was just a simple, "How you going today?"
Yeah.
But then they actually went to my manager and actually said, "Look, I'm really frustrated because
I've had way too many approach me, and this is
yep."
uncomfortable.
And look, to be honest with you, I mean, because we were in such a large store, you know, I couldn't tell if that bloke had been approached or not. So
yeah, you just see a customer just sitting there by themselves. You're like, "I'll just see if they're okay."
Literally, but our manager said, "Well, okay, at least I know they're doing their job properly then," because the customer was like kind of not, I mean, he wasn't nice about it. He was kind of being a bit rude about it, like just sort of saying, "No, I'm sick of this, you know, yada."
Yeah, that's just good customer service. So,
well, that's the thing. And he said, "Look, at the end of the day, if no one approached you," he said, "then I'd have an issue with it." But he said, "At least if people have approached you," he said, "at least I know they've done their job properly." So, but yeah, look, I completely understand where people are coming from in terms of that they don't trust salespeople because there is such a bad reputation around it. But having said that, you know, again, it's like anything, there's good salespeople, there's bad salespeople, and I've certainly worked with some stereotypical ones, but most of the team I worked with back in the day were very genuine, which is good. Yeah.
Can I ask you, with someone that's got over a decade worth of sales experience,
Yep.
bartering, I mean, whatever you want to call it, bartering, arguing price.
Yep.
Where do you sit on that? Is it because there's some people that are like, "Yep, I'm going to get them down to, you know, I'm going to try and get them down to as much as I can," or some individuals I know will go into the shop as a challenge to go, "Yeah, I'm going to get this, and I'm going to get it for as cheap as I possibly can, and get them to throw in all the goods." And I'm sure there's a level of leeway in some things.
Definitely.
But then there's some things it's like, "Sorry, this is already on special. This is, you know, the last model. It's a display model. It's got a dent. We've taken $200 off it," whatever it might be.
Sure.
And then they're like, "No, what's the best price you can do?" And you're like, how does that go?
Oh, look, yeah, you get over it pretty quickly. But look, I suppose the way I do it was, I don't mind people asking me. It's when they asked me 3 or 4 times that it really started to annoy me. You know, if they just sort of said, "What's your best price on this?" and then I'd come back and say, "Yep, you know, this is what I can do it for." And then they'd say, "Oh, well, can you do better than that?" And I'd say, "Well, look," and I'd just say, "Look, depending on obviously the mood I was in the day, but just sort of say, "Look, you've asked me for my best price. I'm not going to give you my second best price. This is what we can do it for." And I think we were lucky because the store I particularly worked in, because obviously, you know, sales, especially with things when it comes to retail stores, or, you know, when you start selling the same products as a lot of different stores, you know, online advertising is a big thing. And we had a system where we could literally see what everyone else was advertising. So we already knew, like, if you know, shop next door was doing a cheaper price than us, we could already see that in our system. So we could see advertised pricing. We obviously, word of mouth pricing is another thing. You know, if I spoke to so and so over there and he told me you can do it for this. Which, you know,
do you have a quote? Do you have an invoice? Do you have a receipt?
Yeah,
to say
look,
this is the advertised price.
And look, to be honest with you, yeah, that does happen. But I suppose the way I'd sort of approach it is, I was just very much, this is what I can do it for. You know, if you find it cheaper, by all means, you know, you're more than welcome to come back and check with me after. I think it would also depend on, you know, the customer itself, because just say, for example, if I'd spent 45 minutes with someone talking about every single product that they wanted, and then they said, "Okay, well, look, now I'm just going to go shop for better pricing," then I'd kind of be like, "Well, look, to be fair, I've given you all the information that you've needed.
I've spent a good quality amount of time with you.
You're now going to go to this store, this store, and they don't have to do any work realistically. I've done all the hard work." I'd give them a price, but I'd always say to them, "Look, if you do find a better price, just please do me the courtesy and come back and tell me, because I kind of feel like I've done the hard work with you." And I think, to be honest, most people were pretty okay with that. Yeah.
How does that go in a team? Because, you know, I can imagine you've got targets, or you've got sales, you know, points that you've got to make. You know, you've got to sell 15 mobiles, 20 vacuums and
Sure.
50 hair dryers, whatever it might be.
Sure.
But usually there's a team of salespeople as well.
There definitely is, and
do you just run to the customer as soon as they walk in the door? Like, how
some people do. Yeah, look, some people do. The particular store I used to work at is some people would literally, salespeople would go stand at the front door,
God.
and they'd.
It's not really a team player kind
not
of thing,
so to speak. But then having said that, I think when it came to what we did, so we had KPIs based, and it was literally just a dollar figure. Didn't matter if it was,
whatever. However many sales, it's just you've made this amount of money.
Exactly right. So basically, like I said, there were definitely people in the store that I worked in that would just stand at the front door and was just customer. And look, you don't blame them to an extent, because again, they've got to fill their back pocket as well. They're trying to make as much money as they can.
We've all got mortgage dependents, all those
exactly.
Kind of things, yeah.
But having said that, I think also a lot of it would come down to, obviously being salespeople, we work, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
We have 2 days off a week like normal people. But, I think there's also, you've got to have that level of trust that if I'm off this particular day, and if this customer who I've spent the time with comes in on my day off, I need to be able to trust you that you're going to put that sale through for me if I've done the hard work.
I mean, I think that's a really nice.
Yeah.
That's a really an expectation of a team player that they're at least willing to go. Because then I'm sure there'd be an instance where the roles will be reversed, and then they ask, "Hey, can you put a sale through for me?" The person wanted to pay in cash, or wanted to organise a trailer for pickup, or whatever it might be, or wanted their wife to come and have a look, and whatever it might be. Swings and roundabouts. Yeah,
it did, and I suppose with the system that we used, so we could basically say, if I was off for a day, it was a very easy process to just put the sale in my name. It was just a matter of swiping a card, changing the salesperson's name, so that was very easy. I suppose where it would come. And look, don't get me wrong, there were plenty of occasions where, it didn't go that way necessarily.
Yeah.
The way I would always approach this is if a customer would come to me and just say, yep, I've got, I want to get this product. I have done no work with them whatsoever. They just said, I want it. My first response is, okay, look, do you mind if I just ask, have you spoken to anyone already? Because generally I've got to spend at least 15, 20 minutes explaining these sorts of things. It's very rare that a customer comes in and knows what they want already.
Yeah, I've been scanning through your website, your catalogue.
Yeah, and look, that's fine. If they just sort of said, yeah, look, I've looked on the website, I've done my research already, I just know this is what I want. Okay, well, fine, no worries, I'll put it through for you. But if they've come back and said, yeah, look, I came here the other day, I spoke to so-and-so, and, they helped me with this, well, then I'd say, okay, well, no worries, well, then I'll put it through for them, because that's fair.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, if they'd then come in and said, look, I've spoke to so-and-so about this the other day, but I just, but then if I've had to, re-talk to that customer and if they've ended up purchasing something else, well, then I think that's a different story, because then I've helped them with something else. So, and then if they've ended up choosing the product that I've suggested, well, then it's for me. But then if they've still gone back and gone with the product,
the other one.
It can be a sticking situation. And look, don't get me wrong, there's times where it's, I think most of the time I was pretty okay with most people, because I would always do that for them, so they'd do it for me. But
there would be a few individuals.
Yeah, and even so, look, even if the customer came up to me and said, oh, look, I spoke to so-and-so the other day, and if that person's there, I'll say, yep, no worries, I'll go grab them for you. So, but look, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of occasions it can go wrong, and it can go the other way. And yeah, I've definitely had conversations with people who would say, yeah, that was my sale, so-and-so, and I'd be like, look, I'm really sorry. I asked the question. He or she didn't say that they'd spoken to anyone already, or they said they'd spoken to someone, but they couldn't remember the name for the life of them. So if I'd ever spoken to a customer, I'd always write it down on a business card. Here's my name. Here's my details. You've got it there in writing.
Yeah. Can you split commission or the sale? So is it,
the particular industry I worked in, no, you couldn't.
Okay.
It was all we were paid on individual products, and basically you saw the commission when you got your pay slip at the end of the fortnight. So you couldn't really do that. You could actually no, sorry, that's a lie. You actually could, but every individual item on the docket, you could individualize that to say, you sold them this, but then I sold them this. You can do it that way.
Okay.
But once the sale has been completed, no.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think it's quite an interesting avenue, because a lot of individuals, sales, like I said, it does have a negative stereotype, and it is an uncomfortable situation, particularly for a lot of shoppers where maybe they're a little socially awkward, or they don't fully know what they want.
That's fine.
Or
yeah.
They're just, I don't know, they don't want to feel like they're being sold something. But it's informed purchasing in my perspective.
It is, and especially when I think there's different levels of sales, for example, because, just say, for example, if you, and, this is with all due respect to anyone who works in these industries, if you go into a clothing store, it's a shirt, it's a small, medium, or large, or whatever size you may be, to me, it's a pretty straightforward transaction.
$50 max, depends on where you're buying shirts these days, but
exactly.
Not low value item, but compared to a couple of $1,000s on a white good or a fridge.
Well, exactly right. And, if you're buying it, if you walk into a store and see, if you're wanting to buy a 55-inch TV and you see 30 different 55-inch TVs, now, obviously, you may not like speaking to salespeople, but at the same time, well, hey, I need to know why there's 30 different ones and why there's a price range from $700 to $4,000. And I don't know why. Yes, you might have to speak to a salesperson. And look, don't get me wrong, I get the awkwardness, but at the same time, is that person who doesn't like speaking to salespeople, are they going to still be the people that complain if they don't get served as well? There's two ways you can really look at that. So, I suppose you can't win, but our general approach was that if you walk in the store, you want some help. That's the general approach. This particular store I worked at, we weren't in like a shopping center or anything. So, if you're in a shopping center, you might just walk by and just be like, I'll just have I'll have a look while I'm here. But our store, you had to specifically travel to get there.
So they've intentionally walked in.
That's what I mean.
Of looking or buying something.
So our assumption was that you're coming in here because you want to buy something.
I think that's actually really quite fair. I hadn't thought of it that way, that, hey, you've come into this particular supplier store and
that was the approach we had to take, because again, it wasn't a shopping center. It was a complex, but at the same time, you would have had to make a special trip to come here. So our assumption is, okay, you've come into this store on a Sunday at 2:00 in the afternoon. My assumption is you want to buy something, or you want to look at something, or you need some help. So
very fair.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask you, not to intentionally change the subject, so
no, go for it.
I want to ask you about this is a topic I've been wanting to talk about for the last couple of weeks, because we are in the festive season. We've just had New Year's, we've just had Christmas. Obviously, like Boxing Day sales and all those kind of things, and Black Friday or Good Friday sales, all those kind of things are really important. I want to ask you about those and how that sort of changes the dynamic of the, you see some shops are open at like until midnight, which is crazy, or
disgusting,
70% off and all those kind of things. So obviously a very busy period for you.
Sure.
But I also want to then segue that into the Christmas party as well and how that kind of looks.
Definitely, yeah.
But what's your opinion, given that you've got over a decade in sales, not just in, electronics and those kind of things, but in multiple avenues of sales? Boxing Day sales, Good Friday sales, is it like, yep, I'm going to make good commission, or is it, crap, this is going to be busy and hectic, or people are generally ruder over this period? Like, what's your general gauge?
To be honest, it's a bit of both. So as far as the good thing about when you talk about Black Friday, end of financial year, Boxing Day sales, they're the three major ones that we would have every single year, and they still do have to this day, even though I'm not there. You could make... generally speaking, the people who are coming in that day would know what they want. They've maybe come and shopped a month before. Oh, we hear Black Friday sales are coming up, so we'll get all the information we need now, so that when we come in, we can just say we know.
I want the RoboVac. I want the. I don't know what, I'm stuck on vacuums, but RoboVac, stick vacuum, and the fancy Dyson.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So generally speaking, most customers who would come in that day would know what they want, and they would know that, it's the busiest time of the year. Look, don't get me wrong, some customers don't know that, but I'd say probably 80-90% of the customers who would come in on those days would know that they're the busiest times of the year. You come in that car park at 2:00 in the afternoon, you're not going to find a park. And they would generally know that. Generally, you wouldn't find many customers who would complain they can't get served that day, because, again, they're coming in the busiest time of the year. Yeah. So in regards to that, I think, yes, you could make some good commission that day, because generally speaking, everyone knows what they want. Yeah. And it's just literally a matter of you just standing there. And look, I would just generally stand at the computer sometimes, put through the way they want. Next customer comes through. What do you want? And sometimes that's how easy it would be. Very rarely would I have to do a 15-20 minute sales spiel with anybody. So it's
worth your time in regards to sales and commission. And
it is. Look, from a commission point of view, absolutely. The negative side of it, obviously, is,
it's just flat out.
It's flat out, and, especially if it's Christmas, for example, that, you've just had a Christmas day with your family, you've had however many drinks you've had, but then your first thing is, shit, I've got to go to work tomorrow. Now, obviously, look, I'm obviously very aware that, police officers, firemen, paramedics, they are 24/7, so I'm very well aware of that. But I think when it comes to, that sort of thing, it is very... That's probably the negative side of it, is that thinking that, if you want to take time off over Christmas when it comes to sales is pretty much forbidden.
You're going to miss out on a particularly busy period or a really important day.
Yep.
And I can imagine the day is, you're on your feet the entire day.
Yep.
It's probably really busy.
Yep.
It's probably very hectic. Like you said, some individuals might be a little bit more rude, or maybe they're just there, it's the end of the year, or it's just been stressful, or they're just burnt out or tired or whatever it might be. They might be just a little bit more short fused than what they normally are.
Yeah, there are. And I mean, you still, I mean, even when we were talking about, people saying that they can't get served, when customers say, oh, look, I can't get served today, and then our managers will be okay, so look, have a look around. Can you find a spare salesperson? No, you can't, because they're all busy. It's not like, we're standing around twiddling our thumbs. We're all generally busy. So, but having said that, you don't really have the time during the day to really worry about that. And if customers are on the phone, they're complaining that no one's answering the phone. Well, again, have a look in the store. What's going on right now?
I've never been one of those people that think the customer's always right, because I've worked in Hospo and retail, many years ago, where I met many customers that definitely were not right. No. And, you could tell them, yeah, the sky's blue, and they're like, nope, no, it's not. And you're like, okay, fine, no worries at all. You just couldn't get away with common sense to a certain point.
That's exactly right. And I mean, I suppose the reason that exists is because obviously, you need the customers to obviously stay in business. So you obviously want to keep them happy, but at the same time, from a logical point of view, no, they're not. Like and everyone who works in customer service would know that. So no, I 100% agree with you on that.
I've talked about it. We've got an episode releasing very shortly, which hopefully we'll release before this episode, we'll see, with an optical dispenser.
Oh, yep.
Which is very interesting. And we definitely talk about in the episode that we believe everyone should work hospitality or retail, just so that you generally have general respect for individuals, which I couldn't agree more on, because, you meet some absolutely very, very rude individuals as well, or just people that ask very silly questions, or just don't make use of your time, and it's a tricky avenue, to say the least.
Yep.
Let's segue to Christmas party.
Yep.
Where do you sit on the Christmas party? Because in my opinion, and this is why I want to ask you, is they seem to be a dying art.
They are, and I think it's the one time of the year where a business just needs to fork out and just reward your staff, because I've certainly noticed it in the industry I work in now, and the previous when I was in sales in the particular business I worked in there. The budgets get lower. They don't seem as fun anymore, and I think it's just such a shame, because for someone like me personally, I look forward to nights like that where you can just have a night out with your work colleagues and just let loose. And I mean, obviously, nothing stupid, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's just have a few drinks and just put some money, put money on the tab, go from 7 o'clock till midnight, put a bar tab on, get some food out. To me, there's nothing wrong with doing that. And I think where it comes to an extent, where businesses are starting to sort of tighten down on that sort of thing, and even in occasions where they say, "Oh, look, we're not going to do a Christmas party this year because of," I sort of think, well, hang on a sec, sometimes this is just what people look forward to, and so I mean, I love Christmas parties, and I've always had the reputation of being the life of the party most of the time.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, well, no, I'm within. Yeah, I'm always. No, I don't do anything silly, but I just.
It's professional, but good vibes and good humour, lots of laughs.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it is a dying art, which I think is very sad, because when I was at the my last Christmas party at my previous employment, which is when I was working in sales, it turned into $40 per head, and that's okay, well, that gets you a palmy and one drink, basically.
Yeah.
As opposed to, and I thought it was a bit of, and a lot of people just thought, well, you know what, it's not even worth going. And when it creates that negative impact that people just go, well, we just don't want to go then.
Yeah.
And the business is probably thinking, oh, beautiful, we don't have to spend as much money this time. But
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it's a dying art, and I think it's very wrong.
I don't understand even from a performance or a business expectation why it's a dying art. People work hard all year. You stay late. You start early. You cover shifts. You come in when you're maybe not 100%. And I think generally, even in myself doing this podcast for such a short period of time, I've noticed people generally have quite a lot of pride in their role or in their position or their career, and generally are good team players.
Definitely.
All those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And So they bloody look forward to Christmas. And,
Absolutely. And
let off a little bit of steam. A lot of the time you get to bring your partner, so your partner can get to meet
and
with
that's
your
actually one thing I've
and,
noticed is that a lot of Christmas parties was, and again, back in the day, so to speak, even though we're not that old, but like, it was always, employee and their partners. Nowadays, even the ones that are, still doing, a lot of them say no partners, only staff now.
See, and I don't understand that, because it's really nice for then your family members to then
connect with your work colleagues as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Go, that's my work wife, or that's
Yeah.
old Rodney, no work. God, he's funny, and and it gets them to put a name to the face. Or given that you spend so much time with your work colleagues as well at work, a lot of the time your partners want to get to know the people that you spend a lot of time with throughout the day. The gifts around Christmas is a really interesting point as well. I used to have, I've worked in a whole different bunch of industries, and particularly, I think the worst one I've been fired at a Christmas party as well, or let go, which was pretty brutal. When I was an apprentice, I was transitioning from a second year to a third year, and I was going to cost a lot more money, and they're like, hey, you're going to be too expensive. We only want a second year or a first.
But hang on,
this is your last day.
So hang on, sorry to interrupt, but wouldn't they know that going into...
Oh, they were arseholes. They were absolute piece of shit.
But I was just going to say...
And I didn't even buy it. Like, I didn't even get a beer or dinner or anything like that. I had to pay for it myself.
Well, I mean, that sucks in itself. But at the same time, you would think, okay, if we're going to take on an apprentice, we're going to, realistically, we've got to be like, okay, this is what they're going to cost first year. This is what they're going to cost second, third, fourth year, or however long it is. It's like, okay, it's such a shock going from second year to third year that they're going to go up to this price level. Hang on a sec, you should have hopefully known that. I'm probably speaking. No, you're probably sitting there thinking, "Yep, I've literally gone through all this."
You're 100% right. I think I went from like $10 to $12 an hour.
Oh my lord!
But the boss was particularly it was an exact concept of like a typical businessman. Like just cut the fat wherever he could.
Yeah, sure.
It wasn't a nice bloke, so it wasn't that end of a big deal.
Well, it doesn't sound like it. Yeah.
No, God no. And then I've worked at some where, it's 3-course lunch, free drinks, spirits at a lovely, lovely restaurant or something like that, and they give you like a bottle of wine or you get a gift. Or I know some organisations give you like a Christmas ham and stuff like that. Like there are still some good ones out there.
Well, even when my late father was around, like he owned an air conditioning business, cool. And every Christmas I think there was him, another guy, and then they had an apprentice as well. He just gave him $1,000 at Christmas. Like literally how
nice is that?
Now, obviously that was, I'm not expecting businesses to go to that extent, but like Dad was very generous. But at the same time, like, they didn't ask for it and they didn't expect anything, but that was just Dad's way of just saying thank you.
I mean, I think that's a hell of a gesture. $1,000 is a lot of money in any way, shape or form. And I think particularly around Christmas time, it's helpful. But for me, the Christmas party signifies, the closure of a year, the well done, we've all worked very hard. Yep. We've all, not to say that we've made 50% profit or whatever it might be. And I don't think that particularly matters. That's a business issue. But a Christmas party or show is, like you said before, blowing off steam, having a few jokes, whether you're having a drink or whether you drink or not is absolutely fine. But even just getting to hang out with your colleagues in an avenue where there's no pressure, it's, all those kind of things. And you hear those horror stories of, old mate got way too pissed last year and ended up vomiting in the alley or whatnot, which is, obviously people taking it a little bit too far.
Yeah.
But like did you ever go to the ones as a kid? I used to go to a couple where, like my mum and dad worked for like an actual, a relatively large company, and they'd put on like a Christmas picnic. Do you ever go to any of those? Yes, I did. So I mentioned they're a dying thing.
Oh, I think it is too. And so I went. It was when my old man was doing his air conditioning business. Yes, he used to work. So he used to do the aircon installs for electrical retail stores like your Harveys, your Good Guys, and so forth.
Cool.
And they did literally a Christmas. Yeah, it was. I actually remember. Oh God, how old would I have been? I would have been probably. Would have been no older than 10, I reckon. I probably would have been younger. But anyway, it was a national park. It was an open area, and literally it was just barbecue was put on, and all this all the work colleagues were there. But then they got their partners, the kids were there.
Yeah,
that was amazing. I remember that. I haven't thought about that in years.
Some really fond memories.
Yeah.
The ones that I used to go to, they'd have almost like a carvery kind of catering as well, which is fantastic. A fake Santa would come and you'd get a present. I think your parents had to pay for the present, but the rest was free.
I think you know what, if
you get a shitty water pistol or something like that, but it was great fun.
But at the same time, like, you know, if they say, oh look, can you just contribute like say $20 or $30, but like you just do it, do it.
Yeah.
You don't even think
it's a present for your own kid anyway.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. Well, that's right. Yeah.
And I'm not saying to any of those listeners that Santa's not real, but it was a fake Santa in that instance.
But also, when you think about it, it's like, imagine if, you know, especially you're going to pay that, if it was $20 or $30, you're going to pay that money because it's like, okay, well, imagine if I go to this Christmas party and every other kid gets a present, but mine doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to do it, obviously. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
It's a bloody shame. I got to admit. It's an absolute shame because, just those kind of things were incredible. And I've been thinking about that a lot over this Christmas period. Just they don't do that anymore. All the organisations don't.
And especially when organisations like the ones I used, the one I worked for in the sales industry, when they were an Australia-wide company, they had over 100 stores, over 100 stores across the country, and then they brag about how many millions of dollars in profit they've made. And it's like, well, hang on, you can't fork out a little bit extra and put us on a nice Christmas party for us.
I think what you said at the start of, organisations should just cut, take the cost and just go, yep, this is something that we know we're going to have to budget for. And it just goes from there. I've worked for some organisations where they give you a chocolate bar at the end of the year and say thank you very much. Yeah, and you probably get your pay slip and there's like a $2.50 deduction from there. Yeah. Oh, here's your chocolate bar. Yeah, there's your chocolate bar.
Oh, that's shit, man. Like, but you'd almost rather just say, don't give me even if that's what you're going to give to me, just don't worry about it. Yeah.
And then I worked for some where they're like, yep, we'll absolutely cover your lunch, and like we'll pay you'll get paid throughout the time, so you can have lunch. That's something that I'm noticing a lot of organisations are doing.
Say that again. Sorry, what was it?
What they'll do is they'll pay for your lunch, and they'll book the lunch during a work day, so that you either can't drink or you can't drink a lot, and then you have to go to work afterwards. And what it is it's stopping people from doing the night and getting on the piss and doing something inappropriate that they probably shouldn't have.
But I kind of feel like, in my opinion, if you're going to do that, okay, so you do a lunch or whatever, don't go back to work for the rest of the day.
Well,
that's what I would think, because if you're not going to put on a Christmas party, if you're going to put on a lunch for something, go to lunch at whatever it is, 12:30, 1 o'clock, and then just
end of the day,
and then just say we'll have the lunch from so and so, like we'll stay till 2. We've got the table from 1 till 2, and then you can either go home afterwards or we can kick on afterwards, and then it's up to you. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I definitely agree. I think it depends on the industry you work with, whether you work with young individuals, old individuals.
Sure.
I've been to somewhere like people be doing shots at dinner, and you go, "This is so much fun," and it is. It's people letting off some steam, and
it is. And at the same time, like just it's especially it's Christmas time, and especially when you work, especially when you come to certain industries who, like luckily for me, I get a break over Christmas, and it just might be, even if you just do it like say the last day of the year, and just say, yep, this is the last day, we're doing this today. And then, if you want to kick on afterwards, feel free. And then if you don't, so be it. But even so, on the other side of the fence, in the sales industry I used to work in, then it was a case of, okay, well, I think if anything, because you're working, when it comes to sales, hospitality, things like that, if anything, it should be a case of, okay, well, you're going to have to be working a lot more over this period. So if anything, we should probably reward you more.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be working the shittiest time of the year.
You're going to have to do Boxing Day sales and those kind of things.
Exactly.
Very fair.
Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Where do you sit on what makes a good team player? Because, obviously I know in sales, we talked about that just before, that, there's a lot of avenues where, you guys would share customers, and hopefully they would then put in the sale the day after or the day that you're not there.
Yep.
What's, if I'm new and entering the workforce, how can I be a good team player, in general?
I think be willing to, so I was a team leader in my previous sales role for a couple of years. So I suppose part of my job was to lead a team, so to speak. As far as being a good team player, just probably very basic, just be willing to accept constructive criticism. Okay, so anytime I had constructive criticism about a fellow employee or someone who was working quote unquote beneath me, it was just always a case that anytime I delivered sort of feedback to them, or criticism or constructive criticism, whatever you want to call it, just say it's nothing personal. This is just the way. Nothing to do with what I think about you as a person. This is just what I'm noticing from a work point of view.
Yeah.
So I think just be willing to accept feedback. I think also just be willing to accept the way that things are done. but also from a team leader's point of view, just be willing to accept the fact that you're not always right all the time, and that new team player could teach you something that you've never had before. And look, I had that plenty of times where I thought there was a certain right way to do things, but then I worked with someone who might have shown me a different way to do things, for example, and I think, actually, hang on, I actually like the way, but then also not being afraid to sort of say, hey, I really like that idea as well.
Yeah. You strike me as the kind of person, I think you and I are very similar like this. Are you always early?
Very, yeah, my work colleague. Yes,
you were early to this session today.
Yeah, look, to be honest with you, so where I work currently, my scheduled day, so to speak, is 8 till 4:30. I'm in the office between 7 and 7:15. So yes, very much so, and I was the same at my last job as well. I've always been that way. Yeah,
I'm always in any role that I've done, I'll always try and be early. One, because I think it shows. It promotes and shows myself as having general respect for the role, the organisation, whatever it might be. But also my colleagues. When I first started working and entered the workplace. I was a labourer. I worked at a butcher. I worked at a fast food chain. I did all the normal stuff.
Yep.
Most of the time, if I wasn't early and I was late, that meant that someone had to stay late. That I was replacing them, a shift change, swap.
Yeah.
So if I was late, that was like the worst thing that you could do because someone's been there for 6 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours, whatever it was. They now have to stay longer than they have to because you didn't get your shit together.
Yep.
Which I think is a really, really is the opposite of a team player. I think it's a real dick move.
It definitely is, and even when I was in a team leader sort of role, when it was the same thing. Our normal standard day was 9 till 5:30. Yes, I'd be at work at probably 8:15. But having said that, I always just sort of asked the question, if any of the people in my team, for example, if they were just going to be running late, just do me a courtesy, flick me a message, just sort of say, hey, I'm just running about 10 minutes late.
I got stuck in traffic.
Whatever, and that's fine because
it
happens.
Yeah.
That was just always the thing I'd ask, but, don't, when it comes to 9 o'clock and if you're not here and if I haven't been notified and then rock up 10 minutes later and just say I'm running late, I'd just say, look, can you just tell me, just so I know where you are?
I think that's a general respect thing as well. Just that lack of communication is just real poor respect.
Yep.
This is my team leader. I need to let him know that, hey, I am running late. The alarm didn't go off, or I got a flat tire, or I'm not feeling 100, whatever it might be.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Yep.
I don't know, the coffee machine broke, so I had to go through the Macca's drive-through. You get so many shit excuses out there, unfortunately.
You can,
I think if you're going to be late, at the very least, to give that heads up.
Without question. Yes.
Yeah, and still, it doesn't make it okay, but definitely...
Oh, no, but at least at least you have an idea of, okay, so-and-so is not here because of this reason, okay, so I'm not going to sit here expecting, are they going to turn up or not? So, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Given you've been in the workforce for a little while, we said before, neither of us are old, but given you and I have both been in the workforce for a little while, what's some advice you'd give for someone who's entering, whatever industry or sector it is, not just sales and retail and all those kind of things, but to make them a good team player? I always think, for me, ask questions.
Definitely ask questions, and also, and I say this with all due respect, you work for them, they don't work for you.
Yeah.
So, and the way I can sort of word this in a sense is that, you can certainly, and this can come to things like whether you want to talk about, like, say, working from home, or whether you want to talk about other things, but, when it comes to, you've got to be realistic in a sense that, okay, well, I'm working for this organisation. They've got expectations that I've got to meet. Okay. Now, when it comes to, let's just use working from home as an example. If an organisation tells you that, you're allowed one working from home day a week, just as an example, but then you turn around and say, you can certainly ask the question, say, look, I want to work from home 3 days a week. If they turn around and say no point kicking up in my opinion, don't kick up a stink about it, because they set expectations and they don't work for you, you work for them. I think that's probably one thing that I would probably stress in regards to just entering the workforce for the first time, whether it's for the first time or changing jobs, whatever you want to do. Team play is a big one as well, because as I've sort of talked about on other episodes that I've done with you, is that a sense that, we see our work colleagues more than we see our own family and friends.
Yeah.
There's got to be that element of respect as well. And if you're going to spend, say, between 30 to 40 hours a week with these people...
100%, yeah. Often more.
Even more in occasions, it's probably easier for you that you get along. Now, you don't have to be best friends. You don't have to catch up outside of work. But just also know that at the same time that if you are... in the workplace, it's very awkward when you work with someone that you don't get along with, and especially when you're spending that amount of time with them. that can be very awkward as well. So I think just knowing the fact that being a good team player goes a real long way.
Yeah.
And then also having said that, when I've left organizations before, I think it's always important to leave on good terms as well. So,
well, we talked about before, South Australia particularly is a small place.
It definitely
you burn those bridges, it gets around.
It definitely is, and it's always good to leave an organisation, and then they say to you, look, you're always welcome back here if you need, because you never know. And I've had it in the organisation I work with now, my previous employment, where people have left and then they've ended up coming back because they're like, hang on, the grass isn't necessarily greener over there.
Yeah.
So it's always important to, and that comes with being a good team player as well, because then at least okay, well, if I was to ever leave my organisation, I have that feeling in the back of my head that if I was to ever leave, they would still take me back.
Yeah, and
then,
they know they're getting a good
even though they don't have to. Yeah.
Very fair.
Yeah.
I saw a thing in social media a couple of days ago, and I think it was on LinkedIn. It was around. It was kind of meant to be a sarcastic sort of turn, but it was something along the lines of, I've come to the realization that I need to be more likable in my workplace than I do actually good at my job. And it was saying that, if you're liked, you're going to get further than actually being good at your job, because people like you, they're more likely to give you more rope or give you more help and all those kind of things. I kind of don't see it as a negative, and not to go against you, but to 100% agree with you when you're saying, you need to be respectful of those kind of things. I think it generally helps if you are friends and you do drinks afterwards and that you build, like we mentioned, you're seeing these people.
Look, it definitely
5 days a week.
It definitely does. I do agree with you in that respect. It definitely does make you. Being a likable person does help a lot. I think. Yeah, I was just going to say, when it comes to this as well, it's just more important, because there are some people who will take being the more likable person, but then maybe not focus as much as what they're doing as a role.
Which I agree with you. It's a fine balance. You actually do need to do your job.
And I think if you're sort of focusing more on that and not being good at your job, I think there's got to be that element of both. I think. But, being a likable person is someone who, if you don't understand something, what's going on, are you just going to sit in the corner and just not tell anybody? Or are you going to go to your team leader or your manager and just say, hey, look, this particular task that's been given to me, can you just please explain this a little bit further?
Yeah, I'm not fully getting it.
Yeah, exactly. And just reach out if you don't know what's going on. So definitely.
Yeah, for me, that's ask questions. Absolutely. I definitely agree with you. And I do want to clarify. I do think you need to be likable. Not that I think that's an essential part of work, but
it does help though.
It helps build bonds. People are more likely to give you a hand or to help unpack something.
Definitely.
And that works two ways. You're more likely to then work with a colleague if, say, there's a particular situation and you're not sure about this. All right, let's problem solve together. See what it's like. As a leader, you mentioned before you've been in leadership roles.
Yep.
I'm sure you would prefer a team that gets along.
Without question. Yep.
Is it good to have a little bit of competition there, or?
I think there is. When it comes,
not as in I'm going to screw this person over to get ahead of them. But,
yes.
A little bit of friendly competition goes a bit away. Hey guys, whoever gets the most sales this month, I'll buy you a coffee in the morning, or I'll get you lunch.
Look, I think in that respect, absolutely. I think there's nothing wrong with that. But then and I think a lot of it comes down to the employee as well, because especially if you coming from the sales background as well, which is when I was the team leader, if you sort of say to hey, whoever sells, let's just say we do it on a weekly, whoever sells the most sales this week from a dollar amount, yes, you'll get a reward of some sort. Now, as long as I go about it the right way, as far as just doing not stealing sales off of people, and then I've got no issue with that. Then it's also what I suppose probably just having the sort, let's just say your weekly target, was say $30,000 worth of sales. And let's just say as a general rule, you'd always struggle to hit that mark. But if I put that challenge on you and then all of a sudden you go 50, you sell 50, part of me is really happy for you. But then at the same time, I'm like, well, hang on a sec. Does it really take a slab of beer for you to actually do that properly? Yeah, okay.
So are you then not to your full potential?
Well, that's not so much. Then that's the conversation you have with them is, and you can see if you put an incentive on something. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. You put an incentive on something, it's always going to motivate people to work that little bit harder.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you go from let's just say you go from $25,000 worth of sales in a week to $50,000, that's a huge jump. If you go from say 30 to 35. That's a kind of small increment. You can say, okay, well, I can deal with that. But when it's almost like doubling what you've done before, maybe the conversation comes like, okay, well, how hard are you actually working?
Is there a bit of underperformance
Yes,
there that we need
but
to
then
address?
but then that's the conversation that you have. So
And
and
it's just been a lucky week or
look,
month.
and don't get me wrong, but then as a team leader sort of role, you're working, and at the same time, you would know if it's a busy week or not.
I think you've unpacked that really well as a leader. It sounds like you were a good leader because you've kind of you've looked at pros and cons. Go, I'm getting more out of my team and a bit of friendly competition, but actually, if I'm seeing too much increase, sounds like
you asked the question. Yeah.
Fair. You mentioned before working from home, and I know you and I talked about this briefly in previous episodes. I'm one of those people, I don't like working from home, and at the moment I'm in a new role and it's full-time working from home, and I'm struggling.
Not liking it.
I gotta admit, I'm missing the interaction and connection.
Do you have sorry to interrupt, do you have the option to go in the odd or not?
I do, but none of my colleagues go in, so I'd literally I'd be sitting in an office with people I don't know, and go from there. So I go in one day a week now on purpose, where I still get to sit and feel the buzz and get to interact with people and have a make a coffee and go, oh, how's your weekend, and that kind of stuff. So I purposely picked a Monday, and I still have Teams meetings and all those kind of things.
Sure.
I miss the general problem solving, the chit chat and all those kind of things. I think you're a bit similar, where you also prefer to sort of go in.
Yeah, and we sort of touched on this in one of the episodes I did with you in terms of working from home. And it was very brief. It's just like, look, I don't like working from home, and I never have, and I probably never will.
It can be a benefit because you do get to claim a certain amount of your internet and some tech and your chair and your desk on tax and all those kind of things, and a bit of electricity and I think a bit of your water or whatnot. I don't know, I'm not an accountant, but
I can definitely see the benefits of it.
There's pros, and you don't have the commute, so I don't miss the commute time. I'm not taking an hour bus ride to and from work now. That's awesome. So I definitely get more out of my day. But it is, I'm literally sitting in a room all day.
Sure.
And you're like,
So, I mean, my previous role in sales, obviously working from home wasn't an option, so I won't even bother with it. But my current role now, the working from home is definitely an option. And look, flat out, I'm not a fan of it. I don't enjoy it. Now, there's a few reasons. I'll probably touch on the first one. So the particular role that I have, which is dealing with customers or clients, and that's via phone, email. Look, when it was peak COVID times and we had to work from home, we didn't have an option. So, I mean, look, if I have to, I will. And obviously it could be a lot worse, don't get me wrong. My particular role, I have to, sometimes I'll have the answer straight away. Sometimes I'll have to go to another department to get the answer. And look, it's easier to walk 10 paces to go and ask someone the question than it is to get on Teams, things like that. So,
and I think that's really good because it's organic conversation, problem solving. You're building rapport naturally in that as well. Absolutely get a result. Oh, sorry, I said your name.
That's right.
Sorry, guys. I'll have to bleep this out. Apologies. But this individual will come and build rapport. They'll, they'll problem solve. It shows a lot of initiative for their higher ups as well, which I think is really cool. You have a presence in the office. Those kind of things.
And I think so. Probably point number one is from my actual role point of view. It's actually just a lot easier if I'm in the office. It's actually so much easier than being at home. So I think that's one thing. Two, I'm very much like you. I'm a people person. I love talking to people and I love just being around people. So I think there's that element of as well. So and look, to be fair, I do like the people I work with. So
do you hot desk? Or do you have a set desk?
I've got a set desk. So I've got a set place where I sit. So it's not like I change every single day. So everyone sits, where they're sort of allocated to, so to speak. So for that reason, I like being around people as well.
I'd love to get your opinion. Just checking the time. It's 4. Did you need to go at 4 or where we're at?
We're good.
All good. That's right.
Yep.
It's authentic and raw, guys. So too bad, but I just want to make sure we're all right with the time.
No, we're all good.
Because I don't want to keep you too late. When do you need to go?
Still got another 40 minutes. So plenty of time.
Awesome. Sorry, this is a very authentic episode, so too bad. Where do you sit on hot desking? Because I love having my own space, but then it's also, I love the organicness of you might sit next to someone different every day.
So I think I'll touch on it from the role that I do. From the role that I do, it's probably best that we just sit where we are, and in terms of don't move. I suppose the way my desk is set up, and that's probably part of this is because we don't move, but like I've got all my photos like of family and friends and stuff.
Exactly. You've made it your own space.
I've made it my own space. So
fidget spinners and
exactly.
like photos.
Yep.
I know some people keep like snacks in their drawers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's that as well. So I think from our role point of view, and I think when it comes to our role, I'm with the rest of my customer service team, the people who draft all the house plans, they all sit together. The people who do all the estimating, they sit together. Yeah, so it kind of makes, probably from my point of view, it makes more sense that we're all together because we're all doing different things and we've all got different teams. So in that respect, I think it depends on your organisation in terms of what you actually do for a job. Would depend on if it actually works for you. If we didn't, I'd probably have no issue with moving desks every day, but at the same time, it's so much easier if we are just where we are.
It is a good excuse to to get up and move around and all those kind of things. I've actually got it's a funny story now, but at the time it was terrifying. Where in a previous organisation I used to work for, we did hot desk, and it was just after COVID, and I think they were trying to entice people to come back.
Sure.
And they were not sure on how many people were coming in at any given time, and it was hard. There was some construction going in as well, so desks were constantly moving and whatnot. And the only thing that didn't really move was our reception area. And we had a reception area where we did have members of the public coming in, no worries at all. What happened, which is really, really fascinating, is the receptionist at the time, a lovely, lovely person, was eating, I think it was like pistachios or something like that, or peanuts, and then forgot to sort of, sanitize and wipe down their desk. And
I think I can see where this is going.
Yeah, you can. And then went on to their lunch break, and then someone went to cover them, and that person was allergic to nuts and had an anaphylactic shock. And their throat started closing, and they started like swelling up and all that kind of thing. And the ambulance had to be called because they didn't have an EpiPen. There wasn't one in the first aid kit, all those kind of things. So I won't mention who it was or the company because the company didn't have an EpiPen in their first aid kit.
That was probably my first red flag that I saw. It's like, you probably should have one.
And the individual who was quite allergic to nuts didn't have an EpiPen on themselves either. So there were definitely a few. So there's some interesting policy changes that happened afterwards. It's funny now because the person was absolutely fine. It was an honest mistake, all those kind of things.
I suppose it's something that she could, he or she could have gone into a public place and the same thing could have happened. You just don't know.
100%, yeah. And, this wasn't, it was actually someone that doesn't normally work in reception in both ways. The person who was eating the nuts and then the person who
just covered.
So it was just, a bit of a concert, I'm forgetting the word,
Coincidence.
Thank you. Thank you very much. God, I need a cup of coffee. And it was, at the time, and people were panicking, and this person was absolutely fine. They went to hospital. They had the EpiPen. I even think the paramedics had one on board and all those kind of things, and they were fine. They were just looked over.
You would hope so. Yeah.
They literally were back at work the next day. No problem at all.
Yeah.
But you're just like. And it never would have happened if hot desking wasn't a thing.
No, definitely, it probably wouldn't have. But then, again, you can even talk about like pre-COVID, like that could have still happened. That could have, it's not. It's not like you can. It's not like something like that could have said, okay, well, because of this, and we've had to do this because COVID happened, and because we have to do this, and this, that's led to this. It's like no, that literally could have been pre-COVID. The same thing could have happened. So, But yeah, and probably the other point, Sarah, just with the other working from home stuff, is that probably the most important reason, which I have touched on briefly in my other episode I did with you, is that the main reason I don't like working from home is for me, working home being separate is very important to me.
I agree.
So I think, and especially and I think because you touched on this brilliantly last time, and because I hadn't even thought of this because I see it all the time, I just never even think about it. But, when you think about people who work from home and then they're, like you catch the bus, I catch the train to work, and you see some people just sitting on their laptops to and from work, just doing work. And I'm just thinking, okay, look, you're going to be in this train maybe 15, 20 minutes. Like how much realistically are you going to get done in that time? I'm sure it can probably wait. And, and I think especially when you go home, that temptation is there to just turn your laptop on and just, answer a few emails or do whatever. You need that switched off time. And probably, and I think I think you and we're probably in the minority in this respect, because I think a lot of people will be, no, working from home is a privilege, and I look at it. Probably the way I look at it is it's there as a luxury. So I think it's there if you need it. So does someone need a working from home day, so to speak? I'd probably think that's probably more of a want more than a need.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
It's good for flexibility by any means. Like I mentioned, the role I do now is full-time from home, even though I do go in 1 day a week. But you can have a lot more flexibility around.
You definitely can.
A personal appointment or a doctor's appointment or anything like that, or you want to start later. So, like, say you're on a fitness journey and you want to run in the mornings or whatever it might be, or it's a hot day, so you start earlier and you want to finish earlier, all those kind of things. The thing that I've noticed that I'm starting to miss as well is like lunch breaks. I still take a lunch break, no worries at all, and I go into the kitchen, I make something. That's really handy because I've got the fridge and I've always got food. But I miss the conversations. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to have to quickly pause. Apologies, listeners, just a bit of a technical glitch on my part, so apologies. I was talking about lunch breaks, and I used to work for an organisation that would have lunch breaks, and we would all have a lunch break at similar times, which was fantastic because there'd be normally, at least 5 or 6 to 10 people in the lunchroom.
Sure.
And you could just chat.
Yeah, sure.
How's your day going?
Yep.
And even then, and even if there was nothing to chat, we had a really fun manager at the time who'd always have the most random questions like, if you could host a dinner party with anyone dead or alive, who would you have? And even just stupid shit like, what's your favourite Arnott's biscuit? And you'd be like, oh, I like a Kingston. Kingston? No way. I like a Monte Carlo. Like, what? No problem. Like, no way. I'm a Scotch finger man all the way through. And it was just organic conversation. It was rapport building. Yeah. And you really got not like particularly invest in each other's lives, but like you just got to know each other.
I think so, and so the last place I worked, we got a half-hour lunch break, and it was just pretty much, you're in the lunchroom, and it's probably what everyone would do. And that's probably another thing I don't miss about my last workplace is like you got told what time you were going to lunch. So
that sucks.
You're going at 11, you're going at 11:30, you're going at 12, you're going at 12:30, which kind of sucked. But whereas where I work now, where I'm very lucky. I mean, look, I'm very lucky. I get an hour for lunch, and
awesome.
I can go when I want, basically. But
nice.
I think it's actually touching on that. It's actually really nice. There's a group of colleagues that I work with. There's probably about 4 or 5 girls who it's just really lovely. Every lunch break, they always sit together. They always talk about the issues of the world. And I just think it's really nice to see. I'm personally, I'd normally like to take my lunch break a little bit later because I think if I take it a little bit later, then by the time I get back, there's only a couple of hours left to go for the day.
You and I are very similar. Yeah. many avenues.
But having said that, I work in the CBD, so I actually go for a walk on my lunch break. So I'll get out. I think so there's 2 ways. Some people like to just sit and chat and talk about the issues, which is fine. But I think I like to get out. I like to go for a walk. I'll go out for probably half hour, 45 minutes, and I'll come sit down for another 15. So that's just what I like to do. But I like having that, and I agree. At the times that I have worked from home, as far as a lunch break's concerned, it's like, okay, well, it doesn't really feel like one because, I get that.
You're still in your sort of normal working area, I guess, whether you're working at a kitchen table or you've got a desk or whatnot. Yeah. But you get cute lunch dates as well. Like, hey, do you want to go grab a coffee together? Hey, do you want to go get a lunch? Like, I'm having a horrible day, or Monday's kicking my ass, or midweek,
exactly.
Whatever it is.
And you love that little, you got to love, and especially that comes with being, that touching on being like a likable person, you can always, and I think that really shows when you've got a group of people sitting at the lunch table together, like they're all very likable people when you look at it like that.
I think it's another thing that makes a really good team. We talked before about what makes a good team member and things you need to consider when you're entering a workforce or starting a new job or whatever it might be. But I think those core things do generally make you a real, people, oh, hey, can I join you? Yeah, absolutely, come sit down.
And that's the thing, as much as, there's always 4 or 5 girls who are always sitting there. It's always them. But, if I, God forbid, if it was raining one day and if I wanted to sit down there, like, they wouldn't have an issue with it. It's not like the Mean Girls scene where they're like,
you can sit with us.
On Wednesdays we wear pink. Like, it's nothing like that or anything. You can sit with us. Yeah. It's not like that, but so that was literally the first thought that came to my head.
No. I think if you haven't seen that movie, listeners, go see it because it's so
And
fun.
I'd be very surprised if you hadn't, because it's one of the most quotable films I've ever watched.
But it is bloody good.
Yeah, but
she's feeling her boobs and she's like, "There's a 30% chance it's
already raining." Yes, that's right. Anyway, we're not here to plug Mean Girls or anything, but no, I think, but it's that sort of feeling. Like, if I ever wanted to go sit with them, they wouldn't have an issue with it. So
which is obviously really good because they're good colleagues. There's a lot of avenues you that, like work-life balance and, you work from home, it gives you more work-life balance.
Yeah.
And it depends, I guess, on what you value and how you want to look at that.
And I'd be very interested, I'd be keen to know your thoughts on this, but like in talking about this topic as well, I do agree with the flexibility when some people are like, oh, but we've got kids, we need to be able to do this and stuff. And like, I think part of me, like, I get that, but then I think probably the old schooler in me just thinks, well, hang on, what did you do before COVID? How did you make it work?
People just made it work.
They just made it work. And I think, and look, I do like the flexibility side of things, but it's almost just like to say, okay, well, don't act like there's no other alternative. It's like, you need this for a specific reason. Yeah. That's probably just what I think about it. And look, this is coming from a single man who's got no kids. So look, I don't get it.
I mean, very fair.
Yeah.
I don't have children either. But I agree with you to a certain point.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What did we do before COVID? Okay, well, I need to do the kids' school run. Okay, no worries at all. So
you probably left a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
They probably went to OSH. They went out of school hours care.
Exactly right. Or say you work 0.6 or 0.7 FTE. And a full-time equivalent, and you go, okay, I'm going to work 9:15 to 3 o'clock so that I can do pick up, school run. No problem at all. Like you had to make it work. Just people did. Like, we've been doing it for hundreds of years, realistically, or tens of however you claim it, but it's doable.
The only probably the main sort of reason I am probably all for working from home is, if you've got a serious medical condition, I'm fully on board with that. I think if there's certain reasons which, and look, God forbid, but, just say, for example, someone who's going through chemotherapy, for example, that, obviously watching my dad go through it was probably had me thinking a lot about that. I mean, not that he could have worked from home, but I think in a situation like that, when you have your chemo done and then it knocks you out.
Yeah.
But then having said that, should you be in the comfort of your own home or should you be in the office? When it comes to serious health concerns, I think I'm fully, like, I would fully support that. And I think that would become circumstantial as well.
I think very fair. Yeah. And I think it, COVID has taught us many lessons.
Taught us a lot,
good and bad, but it has taught us that there is flexibility and there are options to do different things and I think pathways.
as long as a business is willing to be flexible, I think there's no issue with that. But it's more like I just don't think you're the one that can make the demands of how it works.
Yeah, and there's avenues where I've worked, like I said before, I've worked in many different avenues and workplaces and all those kind of things. There's some individuals that I know, like having been in a leadership position, shouldn't be working from home because they're not as productive.
What's your thoughts on? I need a working from home day because it's too far to travel.
Absolutely no way. I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. You've chosen to work in this place. You've chosen to work in a very similar to this. I'd be like, nah, sorry, that's a piss poor excuse.
Yep.
I know some individuals that are more productive when they work from home. No problem at all.
Yep.
It's a fine balance.
But does that come down to the individual though? Does the conversation be like, well, hang on, why can you work better at home than you can here?
I mean, and that's the thing though. It depends. There's less water cooler chat. There's less travel. They might have to do travel throughout the day, and it's more travel to get to the workplace compared to work from home. As an example, like that's completely fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not going to be as productive, and then you're asking to work from home more, I'd be, as a team leader or manager, I'd be then going, okay, well, I'm sorry, no, you're underperforming. I'd probably put on my harsh hat and go, no, sorry. It depends on the individual though.
Yeah, of course it does.
Don't get me wrong. It is really great to, get a sleep in, to go for a walk in the morning, walk the dogs, no worries at all, do a little laundry instead of being on the bus, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
Working in your pajamas. If you're not a client facing role and you don't have to do Teams and all those kind of things, and you don't want to put on the suit, you don't want to put on the fancy work clothes, you can work in pajamas, no problem at all. I get that. There's flexibility to it.
Yep.
But it's a give and take. It's never an expectation.
Absolutely.
And I agree with you there that it really needs to be I've proven myself, I'm reliable, I'm consistent. I've had some individuals where they work from home. I'll Teams them, I'll email them, I'll call them. No response from either pathway, and I'm like, okay, nah, this doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they are now unreliable or uncontactable compared to being able to walk down the hallway, walk across the building, and go, hey,
Yeah.
I need you for something, or hey, can we unpack this issue,
Yeah.
or can I catch you later today?
I'm glad you agree with me on the distance thing, because again, the same thing. It's probably the thing I think is, why did you apply for a job?
You've chosen
to work there,
Yeah.
so don't use the excuse that it's too far away.
I mean, I've had that excuse come to me, don't get me wrong. I've had someone come to me and go, hey, it's cost me a lot in fuel. And I've gone, okay, no worries at all. Is there other ways that you can
exactly.
other transport? That individual was really reliable, so I was happy for them to work from home one day a week. And we set up a bit of a strategy to go, okay, no problem at all. We'll go 1 day a week for the first 3 months, see how it goes. If your productivity remains the same, we can go to two days a week.
Yeah, like a probation sort of period, so to speak. Yeah,
much, yeah. And to be fair, that person was driving an hour to and from work, not because they were going through like heavy traffic, like purely just distance. It was a long way. This was in the southeast, so it was long distance. They were always driving around dawn and dusk, so a lot of roos were a big concern as well, and they had a tiny little car. This was a single mum, 3 kids, no problem at all. One of the best workers I've ever had. So I was happy to be flexible. And they'd earned that flexibility. Not so I'm saying that you have to, you know, but this individual had chosen to work there. Wanted to work in that particular sector, wanted to work for that particular company, wanted to work in my team, no problem at all. This is what comes with that work, is the expectation. And that was made clear very much from day one. We didn't change it halfway through. I remember being an apprentice, and I was driving from bloody down south to north every day for 3 years.
Exactly.
I think most of the time my travel time was like an hour and 45 minutes on the way back going through traffic.
But you did it. And you did it because you had to.
Had to do it. I needed the job. Had to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I spent a lot of money on fuel. But that was
part of the job.
I took that job. That was my call.
No, I'm just glad you're on the same page with me about that.
100%. Yeah. I don't think it's a particularly fair avenue, to say the least. And then you get that perspective as well. You can be very careful about unconscious bias, and are you favoriting another individual over someone else? You know,
Definitely.
how come they get to? Oh, well, they've got a longer drive than you do. Well, hang on, we both applied for the same job or to work from the same company. We both knew it was based in this suburb or this area, or it required this amount of travel. You go from there.
Not everyone lives in the same location. It's like, if you want to travel, you know, if you've applied for this role and you've got this role based on the fact that you know exactly where the role is, don't complain about distance to me.
There might be a few listeners going, hey, that's a bit harsh, and I know there'd be, you know, outliers there and extenuating circumstances, but I do wholeheartedly believe if you've applied for that role intentionally, knowing full well, like you probably would have interviewed and had to gone into the office and known exactly how long the commute is. They could have asked specific questions in the interview about, okay, what's the, is there a hybrid working model? What's that look like?
Yeah, exactly right. And then at the same time, they offer you the job, and then you've still got to accept it as well.
Yeah, exactly right.
So, yeah.
Exactly right. I've worked in positions where I've had to drive to and from work, but then also drive throughout the day. A sort of a client facing, where I was working in mental health, and I'd go out and see, 5-6 clients a day. Some of that fuel I could claim, some of it I couldn't.
Yeah, sure.
I didn't get paid any extra for it. That was just part of I took that job knowing that. So
exactly. Yeah.
It's ebbs and flows, I think.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah.
Okay. We're a little bit over an hour. I don't know whether we need to wrap up or not. I think we probably do.
Sure.
Just given the time frame, I can only record for a certain amount of periods.
Yeah, of course.
For the listeners' knowledge, so we might need to leave it there. Sorry, I'm kicking you as well under the table.
Footsies, that's right.
Thank you very much for coming.
No, thanks for having me. It's been really good.
I always enjoy sitting down with you and chatting, because it's really good to unpack some of these things.
I think it's also good that we just seem to have, not knowing going into this, but we just have the same opinion on a lot of things. I think that kind of helps as well. But
I hope we have the general right, not that there's ever a right and a wrong opinion, but I don't think
and I think it's more like, there's nothing wrong with having an opinion, and look, who's to judge who's right and who's wrong. This is just what we think. It doesn't matter what I think about so-and-so as a person. It's just, it's like debating, okay, did Nick Dacos deserve to win the Brownlow last year, or did it deserve to go to Matt Rell? Like, everyone's going to have different opinions. Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, you're not wrong. That's just what you think. And, I think especially in today's society, this is probably getting a bit off topic, but I just think it's more a case of, especially when people are talking today, everyone's allowed to have an opinion.
100%.
And you don't have to all agree on the same thing.
Very true. And it's good to chat and talk about those things and unpack them. And you know, I think as long as you're listening to other people's viewpoints and being respectful, this is probably really good advice for individuals, you know, entering the workforce.
Exactly.
You don't have to agree with everyone or get along with everyone, but it's, you know, mutual respect. And
exactly.
You go from there.
No, absolutely right.
Very fair. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And much appreciated. Cheers.
Cheers.